Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and today we have Marie Pizarro with us. Really excited to have her. Anne is a registered nurse, holistic practitioner, and Akashic Records reader and teacher. She's the founder of Body Energy Connection and helps holistic entrepreneurs and creative agents receive answers and tools for their life's most pressing questions. She currently offers client sessions, group programs, and live classes, and I'm a client, and I've gotten so many amazing messages through Anne and from the Akashic Records, which you're going to learn all about in just a few minutes. So thank you for joining us today, Anne.
Oh, thank you, Stephan. I'm really glad and happy to be here.
So let's first of all define for our listener or viewer, what is the Akasha and what are Akashic Records?
Wonderful. That's such a great question. And I'm just going to dive in first with the Akasha. And what the Akasha is essentially this essence, this field of energy that surrounds every living being. And it's like this fabric that creates and connects all forms of life on this plane as well as other planes. I like to think of the Akasha as source itself. And it's the way that source collects information and has the ability to know itself. And so through the Akashic Records, it's actually allowed source to be able to collect this body of information, store it in this non physical plane where we as beings can access it through different means, whether it's prayer, through meditations, different types of spiritual experiences. And it's within this plane of the Akashic Records, which is protected by the record keepers. And this is a plane of light. And so when we access this information, we're getting it in the form of light. And it's a library of knowledge, what I like to call the universal computer, that stores every soul's thoughts, memories, experiences, past lives, present circumstances, future potentials. And as this huge database for Source, I feel like this is Source's most efficient way to be able to collect data. All these different soul experiences, and in a deeper way, how it really recognizes itself, how it attains consciousness, and how it grows in consciousness.
So all this data includes every single thought that you, I, the listener, have ever had, every deed, every emotion, every single experience in this lifetime
Absolutely.
and in past lifetimes and in future lifetimes are all stored in the Akashic Records.
Absolutely. It's really, I feel like it's such a gift to be able to have access to that because it helps us as souls have an essence of connection to what we've done in the past. So while everything has been collected, it also collects the potential of everything that could have happened up to a point. And once that point gets exhausted or you don't go through that choice, then it just simply dissipates into the field of Akasha and falls back into the ether. So, what does get collected and stored are all the actions and choices that you discern and follow through with. And it's essentially what I call access to your soul's autobiography.
Wow. And so I can, by accessing the records keepers through you, I can find out information about past lifetimes and unresolved relationships, issues in those past lifetimes, and how they might be spilling over into this lifetime. Is that right?
Absolutely. I honestly feel like everything we experience is some form of a karmic repetition of sorts, whether it's the relationships we have with our intimate partners and our families, as well as our peers and coworkers. And there are even occasions that seem like they feel like deja vu moments to people. Like, I've been here before. I see this. I've seen this. This feels like this person feels familiar to me. And those are all the essences that your soul collects from these previous lives to give you some sort of guidance to choose the things in this life that helps you to resolve those past patterns, karmic agreements and even soul lessons from other lives that you just didn't either accomplish, finish, or was resistant to resolving.
Right. This reminds me of a quote from Mark Twain, and it's history doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes.
Oh my, that's so true. Oh my gosh, that is so true because that whole pact of rhyming, it's sort of like how many times do we have to go over things over and over until we realize we can actually change the cadence of the story or the poem. And that's when we change the rhyme and the meter. And that's how we affect the Akashic Records in this life.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I'm curious what sort of experience or miracle moment, some sort of pivotal happening for you that revealed this gift to you of being able to be I guess, a medium for the Akashic Records keepers.
Well, I gotta tell you, Stefan, I really fought and resisted this gift. I call this a gift because I feel like from the very early stages of my life, the record keepers were giving me an insight of this is what you're going to do later. And I kept saying, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to do so many other different things, but please, guys, show me what I'm supposed to do. It was like I was contradicting myself. And I found myself in 2009. I had already gotten my Akashic Records training. I was already doing sessions, and I went to Egypt for over 28 days and experienced this amazing spiritual experience. Every place that I went to, I opened the Akashic Records, and it was as if I was seeing little bits and pieces of a very big storyline. And I didn't quite understand what those big bits and pieces were until towards the very end of that trip when I really got a chance to see what I call the big picture, why I came back, why I needed to do this work, what I was here to resolve, even putting what I call a book back into the library. And that book happened to be a very difficult relationship. And when the record keeper showed me, you can affect the outcome through your decision to take action, that was the pivotal aha moment because that's when I realized there was no such thing as set in stone. I had an influence and an impact on my destiny. So when I took that decision to try and to be guided by the record keepers, what they showed me was they pulled me out of the Great Pyramids. We were in the middle of this sacred private meditation. They pulled me out of the pyramids. They took me on a little journey through the multiverse. And what they showed me was all these different people, all these different beings, all these different people and uh, construct of beings that were all doing similar things as what we were doing here on Earth. And it was as if I was seeing the layers of how Source was constructing the universe. And it was the invitation for me to dive in. And as scared as I was, as resistant as I was, I said, okay, show me. You show me what you want me to do, and I'll follow. I've never, ever said that about anything. And ever since I said that, they've really guided this work to grow in an organic way, and they keep delivering information, things that I don't even ask about, which is one of the reasons why I really honor what they've brought into my life because it's in a way taught me how to really be me on this plane.
Hmm. So it was this out-of-body experience, essentially, where you were transported through the multiverse, so multiple universes and different life forms that we have not seen in, at least in our physical manifestation that we're in currently. So like aliens, angels,
Yeah,
what kinds
exactly.
of what kinds of beings did
They
you
were
get
showing.
to see or experience or meet?
So that was really interesting because what they were showing was in that period of time, in that moment we were doing that meditation, what is called the Gandharva, where you are calling all these beings of light in and you're doing these big prayers for the world. I saw aliens from different planets, which they labeled things like the Pleiades or Andromeda or Arcturus. I saw other civilizations that looked like they were human, but more humanoid in nature. And they were all doing the same things that we were doing. And that's when I realized, wait, things happen on Earth that also happen in other planes. How is that possible? And they said it's all part of the field of the Akasha, how it's all connected together. So that's the reason why when I saw that, that's when I realized that the different layers existed in the storyline, that what we do here influences other civilizations, other beings of light, and what they do there as well. So that gave me an insight of, wait a minute, it's possible for one soul to have multiple soul experiences. You can be here on the three-dimensional plane, but have more than one soul experience as Stephan or as Anne, but they never cross. So that's when it really started to make the whole aspect of the Akashic Records more complicated even.
Wow. And Donnie Epstein, who is somebody that I interviewed on this show a couple years ago, he's been a good friend for a number of years. I met him on a Tony Robbins Platinum Partner trip. He talks about how you can exchange versions with another version of you that's more resourceful, has evolved better, gotten more skills or abilities than you have currently, and you can exchange versions with that version.
Absolutely.
And that is the fast path to getting all these advances and evolving yourself. You don't have to go through all the hard work of learning all these new skills and trying all these different things out. You could just pray and meditate for your higher, more resourceful version from another universe to exchange with you.
Not only in other universes, but also in this universe. It's as if we have soul fragments that go and break off and experience something else. So you might have a soul fragment that broke off and is having a life in Europe that you'll never ever run into and cross paths with. You may have another version of you that's having a life in South America, another version of you that's living a life in Australia or Africa, and they're all different genders, they're all different ages, they're different cultures, and they're all having this experience called life. And by accessing the Akasha, spiraling your energy, you can actually feel and touch into those experiences that these fragments of you have and draw them into your presence now to have a greater awareness. So if you can do this on this three-dimensional plane, you can do this in other planes. But it's really about, what are you here to try to do? And if you're here to try to understand and know yourself, then definitely having these connections to these different fragments of yourself can be extremely evolving. But they can also be very confusing, because sometimes just you as a soul gets so locked into this three-dimensional experience of what to do, decisions to make, actions to take, connections to people, that sometimes we don't give ourselves that opportunity to step into the true knowing that we know everything that we already need to know. And we already have all the actions, the decisions, and the outcomes preset within us.
So I'm curious if when you looked at your own Akashic records through the record keepers, did you see another version of you in another universe, or in this on this planet? Or maybe it was, as you say, like a fragment that was experiencing a different kind of a life because you or she made a different decision, and the timeline kind of diverged at that point. Was there some sort of big epiphany that you learned by delving into all of this about yourself and your own past and maybe past lives?
Well, the most important epiphany that I had was not to judge myself or anything that I may be experiencing now, any aspect of my fragment experiencing now, or anything that I've done in my past lives. Because one of the most consistent key messages that I received from the record keepers is, at the very end of this life, at the end of this incarnation, when you sit in transition with your guides and the record keepers, they're going to ask you a very simple question, which is, did you resolve the agreements the contracts and the patterns that you came down to earth to do. They don't ask if you had a good time. They don't ask you if you loved enough or if you gave enough or if you were a good person. They don't ask those kind of things because you're on this cyclical journey that continues to happen. So you've done this playing more and more than you even realize. So to not judge yourself actually releases yourself from the karma of feeling as if you're not enough. And this is why at the very end of this incarnation, once all these other fragments of yourself come into your full total being, that's when you get the download of all the things you've experienced. So yeah, I'm sure there's a version of me somewhere who's been the very good daughter. Always took care of my parents, always followed through on what they asked me. I pleased them. There's also a version of me who is probably doing some form of healing work that is ministering to people and really loves that. And there may be a part of me who's really, really good in business, doing sales and making bonkers money somewhere else. And then there's me who just thinks I'm having this one experience. Yet because of this empathy or the sensitivity that we have, it's almost like, where do these ideas come from? Are they just from me? Or is it part of my soul fragment experiencing this life and feeding back to the main database, which is you or I? So it's a very convoluted kind of way to look at a soul's path. But I've realized that by not judging myself for any decision or action or thought I make, I just feel happier, more free, more permission to just live and choose as a soul.
That's great. And was there something particular about Egypt and maybe your history or I don't know. What was it about Egypt that was where you had this big opening?
What's funny, Stephan, is that Egypt was never on my bucket list. You know how people have bucket lists of places they have to go to? It just wasn't there. I wasn't one of those kids growing up that was like, oh, I think Egyptian culture is so cool and hieroglyphs, this or I just didn't even think about it, tune into it. So when I travel, I usually let places call me. You know how some people say, I'm going to go to this location. I actually wait. I wait for that place to call me and say, it's time for you to visit. So when Egypt called me, I was like, oh, heck no. Oh, no way, Jose. My mom told me that, there are these things called walk-ins and, spiritual takeovers. And I was like, not going to go there to this land where they entomb people, they glorify the dead. But when I went there, it was like I came home. And while I was there, they gave me the opportunity to see all the different lives I lived there, from a slave to a priestess to just a regular working person. So Egypt was one of those places that called me because I had to do work there, just like Mexico called me because I had work to do there. And there are other places, even Europe, that have called me. And I'm like, why am I here? And then all of a sudden you feel the pulse and you're just like, oh, my soul needed to feel something here, remember something here. And what Egypt did for me was I feel like it upgraded my abilities on a different level. I showed up there as one person and I left and I came back a different person. And it was sort of like going to graduate school and getting plugged into those gifts that you didn't even realize were there waiting for you. You just had to step into it.
Very cool. I love that idea of having the place call you instead of you just picking.
Oh, yeah. And that's the reason why when I showed up in the Temple of Bast, this is the goddess of war, I was like, oh, it was the Temple of Sekhmet, the goddess of war. When I showed up at her temple, that was the very first temple we went to, and the energy was very strict. Like, if you're going to be here, you're here to do some work. And I started crying. I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. And it was like, are you ready for this work? Because that's what you came here to do. And I had to like put on my big girl britches and be like, okay, I think I'm ready.
Wow, that's cool. So we were in Egypt, my wife and I, 3 years ago now, and she had a really powerful experience inside of Hathor's temple. She felt a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
joy and happiness and
Yeah.
connection, which is, you know, a little surprising, at least for me, to think, because she's Jewish and the Egyptians enslaved the Jews, and here she
Exactly.
felt this amazing connection inside of Hathor's temple.
Which I think is really fascinating because if she had that feeling of lightness, then it's almost an insight of what did you do during this time that would elicit this memory of joy rather than that memory of subjugation. And so what's fascinating is you may be one culture, one gender in this life, but you've been so many others of those in previous lives. As a matter of fact, those things that we have to deal with, the isms, the racisms, the separations, and the all the different schisms, those are things that we've been dealing with for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. And so to come into this physical body as a female, especially as a Jew, and then going into Egypt and having that experience just goes to show that you may be this now, but you've been so many things before.
Right. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's really cool because when I look at somebody or I meet somebody who's innately a racist, and I've met all different kinds of people in my life. When I meet somebody like that, instead of getting mad, it makes me wonder. I wonder what you must have done or been in a previous life that this is the lesson that you're here to learn or to overcome in this life. And at the core of it, a lot of it is really self-love.
Mm. Yep. Yeah, and when you don't love
Yeah.
yourself, it's very hard, if not impossible, to love others.
That's the reason why I feel like the creator created Akasha because it loved us as beings so much that it wanted us to know ourselves on a much deeper level and to even know each other on a deeper level to know that relationships aren't just relationships. There might be a karmic reason for why you're coming back to do that dance again, to get it right, to do it better, or to resolve a disagreement from many, many lifetimes to just say, okay, we can agree to disagree, but I still honor and love you.
Hmm. Yep. Speaking of disagreeing or agreeing to disagree,
Mm.
how do you know what agreements you're here to resolve? Like,
Ah,
I
that's a
presume that
good
you
one.
forget all of those past lives. At least that seems to be the case for me. I don't
Yeah.
remember all the different incarnations that I was. And how am I supposed to know who I'm in need of resolving things with?
Absolutely. And that's such a good question because when we come into this plane, as soon as we go through the birth canal, whether it's a vaginal birth or a C-section birth, as soon as we go through that plane, we immediately experience what I call spiritual amnesia. But when you start to look at all the challenges that you go through in this life, all the things that challenge you, whether it's actions you take, connections you have with people, uh, expectations that you're here to live with, those things that we innately struggle with inside, those are in essence connected to the contracts and agreements that we have. So, for example, if you are a person that worries a lot about money, how to make money, how to grow money, how to get more money. There may have been a past life where you were really good at money. You may have been very wealthy, and then the following life, you experienced the complete opposite. You were totally in servitude. You didn't have 2 cents to put together to your name, and so you're bringing those recent memories and all those previous memories into the now. So the things that we focus on, the things that we perseverate, the things that bother us, the things that causes the conflicts, those are part of the agreements that we're here to work with. And also the flip side of that are the things that bring us joy, the things that bring us love. That's the other aspect of what we're here to also cultivate and grow more with. So in essence, all the lessons that we are facing in this life are exactly the agreements that we're here to connect and resolve.
Hmm. Okay. And is there, as the Hindus believe, like an escape route, the moksha
Wow.
or
Yeah.
mukti or whatever?
Yeah.
Is there this enlightenment or elevation, evolution where you don't have to do the same cycle over and over and over again?
Yeah, I think you do get a chance to choose. there are many people that I've worked with where there are huge gaps. The record keepers will say, okay, we see that you've had, say, 12 out of 15 lives. Your first incarnation showed up in 23,000 during the time of Atlantis, and now we're showing up your next incarnation as Egypt. You're looking at this timeline and you're like, wait a minute, where did 18,000 years go? What did you do in that time? And the thing is that time here on Earth functions very differently than time in Akasha. That's just this field. And so you may be in this field for a short period of time, but you come back on this plane and hundreds of years may have passed, but it was just a blink of an eye. So as a soul, when you get done with each incarnation, you get to sit with your guides, your counsel, your angels in this place of transition, and you essentially get to choose. Do you want to go right back? Do you want to go back with your cluster group? Do you need a break? Do you need training elsewhere? Do you want to go to a different galaxy or a different planet or have a different set of circumstances, a whole different soul group that you can work with, not necessarily this family in this lifetime, but it may be a whole different construct. So you still get to experience choice. So there is a point where I believe a soul gets to the point where they're just like, I'm complete. I've run through my soul cycles. I've run through all the different karma, and I'm just complete. So when you're complete with this three-dimensional body or this cycle, then you get to evolve to other planes where you're still doing things. So that could be stepping into the plane of the angels, stepping into the planes of the ascended masters. You're still in this place where you're connected to source.
Got it. And we all have angels or ascended masters who are kind of assigned to us or who have chosen us as we have chosen them. How does that work?
So that's really interesting. It's not as easy as I thought. I thought, okay, you're assigned a group, a soul council, and they essentially choose to work with you. And so on one level, that's very simple. When you come down to this plane, there's you, your guides, and the body of work you're here to do. Now, these guides that you have are going to change through different things that happen in your life. So if you go through a major transition, marriage, job, moving, you may have certain guides that help you get to that point. And then once you're settled, it may have a change of guardians, I would call that, to work with you in the next different phases of your life. And these guides will kind of come back and forth based on what it is that you need for your counsel. And so you are assigned a group, and the reason why you're assigned to them is that you've served them before in previous lives. So it's their way of giving that help back to you. And there are a lot of different groups that we do get a chance to work with, which allows us to be able to really expand our connection in the Akasha and in the field of the Akashic Records to get the information we need for different areas of our life. So we have a group that's just for our medical healing. There's a group for our work, our creative work, and our business. There's even a group that's tied to relationships, because the work we do with relationships is so unique and so different from, say, what you do as a business owner or even a healer, that you need certain guides that work just in that field.
Gotcha. Okay. Have your guides changed over the course of the time that you've worked in the Akashic Records and passing on this information to your clients?
Yeah, they have actually. And my guides came to me not through the Akashic Records, but I was just out in nature. I happened to pass by this very big boulder. And when I was in Hawaii visiting, there was a message of these boulders. They're known as the guardians of the forest. They're known as mo'os. And I was like, ooh, a guardian of the forest. So I don't know why, but I said to this boulder, can I touch you? And then all of a sudden I heard this voice that went, no. And I was like, okay, a rock is talking to me. And then in that moment, I heard another voice that showed me the name of my guides. And then it's like they just flashed in and out. It was either their name or an image or a symbol that represented that guide. So I actually wrote down who those guides were. And about once a year, I'll check in and I'll ask if there's been a changeover, if there's anything that's different. And the last big change occurred in 2016. And that was the push that pulled me from my full-time job as a nurse to do this work full time. And really, the big push came with the appearance of Lakshmi. I'd never worked with Lakshmi before. I had no idea who Lakshmi was, but I was like, who are you? And she was like, I'm here to make your life much better. You asked for the upgrade, and I'm going to bring it to you, but you have to be willing to do the work. So when that shift happened, I've checked in yearly, and it's still the same grouping of those beings. So there must be another shift coming for whatever change happens next.
Hmm. Now, I remember that the record keepers told me that Lakshmi was one of my guides, if I recall
Yes.
correctly. So could you explain a little bit more about Lakshmi? Because I had never heard Lakshmi's name before either. And, well, until you had told me that this was, or until the record keepers told me through you that this was one of
Yeah.
my guides.
Well, what's really fascinating is, Lakshmi is essentially the Hindu goddess of prosperity and wealth. And she comes into your life because there's a boost that you need, and there's also an upgrade that you're getting in terms of your relationship to money, finances, and how to work with that energy. So, this is such a universal guide, what I call a cosmic master, because when you're on this three-dimensional plane called Earth, unfortunately, money is one of those things you have to deal with. You need it to be able to survive, to eat, do business, it's all kinds of things. So when Lakshmi is showing up to work with you, there's three reasons why. One of the reasons why is first, she's here to help you gain an upgrade over any karmic lessons tied to money and how you choose to work with that energy. So she's helping you to step above that. The second thing she's helping you to do is tend to the fertile soil of your subconscious. And if she doesn't show up, there's a part that worries about money. Whether it has enough? But when Lakshmi shows up, it's sort of like tapping into the abundance of the universe and reminding you that your source of abundance is not the dollar bill or the yuan or this or that uh, monetary unit. It's source. And so what she's really doing is she's helping to plug you in to the universal bank. And then the third thing that Lakshmi does is she helps you to work with actions that you take towards money. So she helps you to make wiser decisions. It's like she puts ideas into your mind that helps you to initiate the action to bring that more factor in. And it's sort of like when she shows up as part of your counsel, she's really bringing this gift of abundance to help you prosper because believe it or not, Stephan, we live in such an abundant universe that for anyone to be living in poverty or lack is really sad. So when Lakshmi comes in, she's really helping you to upgrade to that next level. So you start to exist in what I call the fifth dimensional relationship with money. And once you start to exist in the fifth dimensional relationship with money, you start to not worry about it. You start to not think about the lack factor because you do see the abundance. And once she really plugs you in, it's sort of like you're moving at a higher capacity that after a while, she's like, my job is done. You can do it on your own. You'll be continually blessed because of the actions and connections we'll have, but there are others that I'll serve as well. Does that help?
It does, yeah. And I felt like I had an upgrade because I did have a bit of a lack consciousness around money, even though I've done well. I didn't seem to break through a certain threshold that I set for myself. And I just kind of felt inadequate. Like, why am I not able to get to these higher levels that I wanted to? And I don't feel that anymore. I do feel that it's more of a spiritual karmic sort of thing than about just hard work and being at the right place at the right time sort of thing. Like, for example, this is the second time that I've been in Israel for a length of time. So the last time was for almost 6 months, and that was a year and almost 2 years ago. No, actually, it was more than 2 years ago now.
Wow.
And a huge abundance came. I was kind of unplugged from the conference circuit and from the masterminds that I usually show up at and so forth. And I was here for my wife. and that just paid dividends. I did really, really well that year, really well, even though I wasn't showing up at all these different events that normally would make all
Yeah.
the lead flow and deal flow for me. And then again, this year in 2020, we arrived in July and record year,
Wow.
beating out 2018, which was the year that
Wow.
So this I've been very blessed, and I recognize that this is not something I should be shouting from the rooftops and so forth, because a lot of people are having a hard time right now, and
Right.
and yet this gives me an insight into the spiritual nature of money, because it's just energy, and if I have a lack consciousness, I will create more of that. I will attract lots and lots of lack into my life.
Exactly. And I think one of the most powerful aspects of Lakshmi showing up as part of your counsel is acceptance,
Hmm.
and the acceptance of that birthright, and what power that does for the subconscious when you just accept what is already is. So even though it doesn't look like that, and you accept that this is the true reality, that's when she says, let me prove it to you. And that's when you realize, whoa, we're dealing with something that's kind of magical in nature.
Yeah.
Like you said, the substance, the etheric substance, the energy of it. And that's when you start to evolve to that higher dimensional awareness of how are you playing? How are you appearing on a much bigger level in the world?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a really fun, enlightening journey for sure.
Yay.
And one other question, or maybe two more, and then we'll switch to
Yeah.
opening my Akashic records and speaking to the records keepers. Um, do you consider yourself a medium or a psychic or both or something different? Like, how do you define yourself?
That's a great question because I remember the very first time that someone said, oh, you're a mystic. I said, a mystic? What is that? And so I don't ever put in a name or a title because I almost feel like that word itself lends itself to scrutiny, criticisms, and eventually some aspect of a challenge. So I don't like to utilize that word psychic. And I definitely do not call myself a medium. But what happens when I'm entering the Akashic records and the reader shows up has these abilities that I, on a normal basis, just don't what I have to really hear so acutely to what the record keepers ask or suggest that I can take action on it immediately that allows me to tune in. So that title is difficult for me. So I like to just use the word I'm a reader. And
Okay.
the reason why I like to use that word, I'm a reader, is because it levels the playing field out for everyone. And it doesn't make me any more special than you or anybody that you know, because these are actually abilities that we all have. So to utilize those titles, I almost feel like it puts me in a box, and I don't like that feeling.
Yeah. It
So I'm going to go
separates
with the
you.
reader. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the reader because I feel like the reader is an aspect of my higher self. And I feel like that aspect of the higher self has gifts, like the ability to receive psychic information, clairaudience, clairvoyance, that I would like to say is innate in all of us. Some of us just choose to utilize it more, so it becomes like a stronger ability than others. But I do want to reinforce that we all have these same type of gifts.
Right. And clairvoyance and clairaudience is where you see visions and you hear
Mm-hmm.
voices and sounds that give you that information from the records keepers.
Essentially, yes. As soon as I'm in the actual field of the Akashic records through these 13 plus years of working with the record keepers in this life, I'm just saying this life, because as soon as I stepped in, they were like, awesome, you're back. This is all the stuff that you've done before, and we're just going to plug you right back into all those abilities. So, as that aspect, I feel like I'm able to receive their actual verbal messages. And they have a tone, they have a voice, they have a diction that's so different from my own. And it has an authority that's so different from my own authority that my job is just to really step aside. So that's where the conscious field can interfere a lot. So I often ask this conscious self to step aside when I'm in sessions so that what's left in the call is the reader. And the reader is the one that really has all these, what I call super sentient abilities, clairaudience, clairvoyance. So not only do I hear the messages of the record keepers, they start to show the words, the signs, the symbols. And the most fascinating part, Stephan, is if there was one thing I wish I could imprint into people's minds is when they ask about past lives, because I feel like I get a chance to see anywhere between a 5 to a 15-second video snippet where I get to see what you look like, how you were dressed, what you were, your challenges were. And it's interesting because how you look now, there might be a small tiny part of those previous lives that may represent even who you are, from the shade of your eye to say how the eyebrow is shaped to like a dimple. Those little characteristics that go from life to life makes me realize, oh, I'm looking at the video of Stephan doing this life and experiencing these things. And as soon as the video is done, it's like gray space until the question shows up and then the answer starts to reveal itself.
Interesting. It's funny that you mentioned a dimple, since I have one pronounced dimple and then not
Yeah,
one on the other side. I'm curious if that's something that carries over from lifetime to lifetime.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I actually have seen my baby David, who's a
Hmm.
little over a year now. He's got a dimple on the other side, so he's just got one dimple, just like me, but it's on the other side of his face.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That is amazing.
yeah.
Well, just from already having this conversation with you, and we're already tapped into that field of the Akasha, the message I get about the dimple on the left side is it's about receiving joy, but on his side, which is on the right side, it's about giving joy. So it's interesting how those things pass from life to life to life. I've even seen images of birthmarks that show up from different people's lives that have a genetic connection. So it's those little tiny, what I call soul imprints that Creator likes to give to us that just reminds us there's a link that continues from past to present to future.
Amazing. All right. I'm already getting goosebumps. I'm real excited. So let's open the Akashic Records if you're ready.
Absolutely. So I'm going to just do what I normally do in an opening prayer. And then, if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on hold for a couple of minutes to continue to open your Akashic records. And then, as soon as I hear that your records are open, we can come back and we'll continue this conversation. So, you ready to dive in?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So, Stephan, just remind me, what was your full name that we used?
Stephan Martin Spencer.
Great. Okay, wonderful. So let's go ahead and just relax for a moment. I'm just going to call in the Creator, our guides, all the beings of light, and the record keepers who are working with us. Just invite you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and exhale. Allowing your body, mind, spirit, and consciousness to align, arrive, and be present to our call at this time. We energetically heart link, creating a sacred bond between you and I that allows us to enter our sacred heart space. As we enter into our sacred heart space, we're able to activate and open this portal of light, allowing us to heart link with the earth below and also to heart link with the Creator above. As we are connected above and below, we offer this gift of love and gratitude to the Creator and the earth, allowing them to receive it and return it to us in a tenfold beam of light. Through this tenfold beam of light, we're able to call down our ascended masters, teachers, loved ones, angels, guides, our soul council, and the lords of the Akashic Records. Please work with us and through us that we may receive your gift of healing. Please guide us, direct us, surround, and protect us in a bubble of love and light. Let Stephan Martin Spencer receive knowledge, energy, and information for his highest healing and his highest and best good. So, Stephan, do I have your permission to open your Akashic records at this time?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So let's go ahead and begin. I ask God if He will have His shield of love and truth around you permanently, so only God's love and truth will exist between you and me. I allow the masters, teachers, and loved ones of you to channel through me out of whatever realm to say whatever they wish. I ask permission of the lords of the Akashic Records so I am able to look into the records of you and remove whatever information I'm allowed. So if you could just give me a quick moment, Stephan, I'm going to continue to open the Akashic Records, and I'll just be back in a couple of minutes, and then we'll start your session right away. So I'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Stephan, thank you so much for your patience. Your Akashic Records are now open. The record keepers are ready. So I'd like to ask how you'd like to start. If you would like to start with information that's immediately awaiting, or if you'd like to begin with your questions.
I'd like to start with information that's immediately waiting.
Okay, so you'd like to start with what's available, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to step aside at this time and let the record keepers come through. And let's go ahead and begin. Before we begin, we would like to welcome you back into the Hall of Records. We are extremely pleased in capital letters that you are here for the opening of your Akashic Records. We are greeted by 3 key images and 3 areas of your life we would like to immediately discuss. The first is the appearance of a temple. Temple is appearing as capital T-E-M-P-L-E. The reason why the energy of the temple is appearing is there is something about your nature, the light bearer, that is being asked to hold the sanctity of Source within you. By holding the sanctity of Source within you, you anchor the energy of hope, inspiration, and even focused action that allows others to come to you for advice, knowledge, as well as support and healing. The second and third are the appearance of spirit animals. We see the appearance of a lion, capital L-I-O-N, and the lion represents the energy of protection, dominion, and most of all, power. You are being asked to work with this creative and vital energy in order to move the barometer of a project forward. The third is the appearance of the horse, capital H-O-R-S-E. This is appearing in the form of a black stallion. And the horse appears to bring the energy of dependability, resourcefulness, and steadiness of pace. There is something that you may be asked to do to stay along the path instead of deviating, getting lost in the wilderness. This is an opportunity to be steady and to keep your eyes peeled in all directions. This is about a deeper level of awareness. We welcome you into the Akashic Records, for there are 3 areas of your life we would like to immediately discuss as we begin. The first is the realm of work. Work appears as capital W-O, small r, capital K. We see that the word steady pace is appearing in the realm of work. And we do see that there is a surge effect at capital S-U-R-G-E appearing in January, middle of January, starting as early as January the 10th. This appears to connect the energy of forward momentum. There may be a group that you are working with, leading, training, supporting, to allow a deeper level of engagement. We also see there may be a corporate structure that brings you in to talk, T-A-L-K, give advice, teach, and even relay knowledge. We also see that an online presence appears to grow with greater ease, and it's as if you are calling the community towards you rather than having to do any external exertive force. The second is the area of wealth. Wealth is appearing as capital W, small e-a, capital L-T-H. We see that the word invest is appearing as capital I-N-V, E-S-T. Invest time and money in 3 key areas. Number 1, personal development, growth of business. Number 2, there appears to be some form of a stock or mutual fund that you can put a little bit of money towards and see what we see the word steady growth. The third is connected to the energy of travel. Travel is appearing as capital T-R, small a, capital V-E-L. Something may pull you from your current location in Israel that may cause you to have to go to Los Angeles or the United States for a visit. This visit appears to be partly personal, family, as well as business oriented, and there may be a key agreement, a key decision that you choose to take on in this time frame of this meeting that allows another potent period of growth. The third is the area of health. Health is appearing as capital H, small e, capital A-L, piece H. We see that while precautions are still necessary and needed, there is an aspect of you that is being asked to focus on three key areas of the body. The first is the area of balance, B-A-L-A-N-C-E, of mind, psyche, and physicality. There may be a part of you that is pushing yourself harder than normal, and this is causing an undercurrent of stress. Please watch out also for lower levels of inflammation, intermittent aches and pains that may sometimes show up related to weather changes, barometric pressure, or even what you eat. Overall, we encourage you to embrace vitality, longevity, and most of all, immunity. We await your questions at this time.
Thank you. So there's a lot of fear and anxiety around us and just on the planet right now with COVID-19 and the novel coronavirus. And now with the vaccines, there are a lot of fears that the vaccine might bear some negative repercussions or have some sort of agent inside of it that might not be in our own best interest. So I'm curious what I should know about the virus, the vaccines, the lockdowns, and just the pandemic generally in order to protect my family, myself, and all the people I love.
Thank you for your question. There are four answers that we are seeing related to your question. First of all, we see that the coronavirus, especially when it's tied to the energy of pandemics, are cyclical in nature. This is something that we see was not necessarily planned, but something that was expected, especially because we see virulent activities with other agents coming up and down through the last 10 years. Thus, when we see the range, R-A-N-G-E, of this pandemic, we are seeing something from 2019 all the way to 2023. When we see the nature of this vaccine, we see the word instability. And the reason why we see instability is because the nature of the virus mutates, which causes this vaccine to sometimes be outdated, as if they are chasing something. The reason why we see the word instability is that more controlled trials and tests need to occur before it is released. And we do see that there is a plan from certain vaccine manufacturers to release what we see as a phase 1, PHASE1, of the vaccine. There are other vaccines that are being created globally that appear to have a more effective containment of the virus. Yet we see this as a very smart kind of a virus, which has such a changeability of its DNA sequence that this is what causes this pandemic to have surges and to delay itself in terms of containment. Thus, when we see your question around what are actions that you can take, there are three answers that are appearing here. Number one, educate yourself from and read multiple sources, stay on top of the news, but not necessarily be embroiled in it. You need to have a healthy distance and perspective so that you can assess the information from a neutral standpoint. Number two, nature is your ally. Feed the body with healthy foods, keep immunity high, and deal with stressors as they show so you are not running an undercurrent of weakness that could potentially get you sick. Number three, we are seeing the words, quote, address things as they show up. This is important because fear can sometimes cause people to not act. But by addressing things as they show up, you are giving yourself permission to exist above the fear by taking actions that you know are warranted and needed, going to practitioners who you can trust, and also, quote, maintaining a healthy perspective of health, safety, and awareness. We do want to reinforce that because this is a global situation, it will require a certain level of cooperation amongst the masses in order to really get a handle on the situation. Where we do see a vaccine can come out that has a reliable outcome is showing up in 2022. We await your questions at this time.
Should I avoid taking the vaccine until 2022, or should I avoid it altogether? Or what are the risks of me taking the vaccine?
Thank you for your question. What we are seeing is with this first and immediate run, there is an instability to it. There are certain side effects that we see have not been able to be mitigated, which is why we see this first run of these vaccines needs to undergo greater levels of testing and trials, not on human subjects. There will be volunteers, but this is why we see if you can be patient and wait, what will show up a little bit later, as in 2022, will have gone through all the extensive testing and trials that it appears to be dependable. And what's really interesting is that this particular vaccine in 2022 seems to come from a European manufacturer. We are hearing the words, quote, by the time this 1 year trial goes through, there is a factor of safetiness that we see can be protective and help to develop some level of immunity. As we stated with this coronavirus, there is an intelligence that this particular virus has that allows it to mutate in such an aggressive way that causes it to even hide under testing parameters, which is why we see that we are dealing with something with an innate intelligence different from other viruses of the past. Thus, we encourage you to collect your data, focus on sources that you find as reliable, and watch the studies as they are occurring. We await your questions at this time.
Thank you. Are there agents of darkness, of evil that are behind this pandemic, and what do I need to know about them, if there are?
This is a very interesting and somewhat strange question because we see that there is a split SPL small I capital T in the answer. First of all, when you ask if there are agents of darkness that are tied to this vaccine that is appearing with a capital Y, small e, big S, there is an aspect of this vaccine that is man-made in nature. And this is why we see that when man chooses to interfere with science, it creates a virulence in terms of outcomes that they cannot always predict or control. Number two, there is an aspect of this that is tied to some level of a government control. We are not trying to espouse conspiracy theories, yet there is something tied to a form of governmental control. Number three, quote, these, quote, dark forces that you are referring to that may be trying to prevent people in terms of evolving in consciousness, awakening, or even having that, quote, aspiration of freedom to be, these particular forces, FORCES, have always been prevalent and present in this earth plane. And the reason why is that the polarity that exists on this plane causes people to have to choose. And what we are seeing is the words, the storyline itself is impregnated with forces beyond man's own control that causes one to succumb to fear, paranoia, and this belief that there are other factors outside of them instigating things to happen. So on one level, we do want to state that we do see that. However, the reason for that polarity is to give man and women the opportunity to discern and choose where they want to put their faith, attention, and trust in. And what we are seeing is the words, you are here as a force of light. You are here as part of the support crew because you chose to come during a time of this pandemic, technology, and a resource rich world to be able to be a part of the support crew that initiates change for a higher level of being. We await your questions at this time.
Thank you. Can you tell me more about the body of work that I'm meant to do as a light worker, a light bearer, and a support person for humanity and the souls on this plane?
Thank you for your question. There are three answers that we would like to share. First is tied to the word temple, Temple. This is not about a spiritual work, but we do want to reinforce that the temple which is in you radiates this aspect of your spirit work anyway. When we see a temple existing in someone, they are here to be a source of light, knowledge, and information for the world. And thus we see that you are here to not only be a purveyor of clear, accurate knowledge, you are coming from a place where you are providing it in a neutral way. Temples are all about service to source, not necessarily service to the self or service to the common good. You are here for the greater good, not the common good, the greater good. Number two, we see part of your work is tied to the energy of training, Training. And this may be training related to business, training related to technology, training even related to body, mind, spirit connection. Number three, the other part of your work is elevating the presence, the awareness, and the consciousness of mankind. When we say mankind, we are specifically discussing the gender of man. We see that you are here to bring something tied to the energy of honor to men because it is as if you have the ability to see both sides. And though you come from a place of privilege, experience, and resources, you are here to uplift other men so that they can choose to be a higher source of spirit on earth, not just to take, not just to take advantage, but to contribute, to add to return that power of honor to masculinity. We await your questions at this time.
Thank you. Could you tell me more about the angels and ascended masters who are assigned to help me in my mission and in this lifetime?
Thank you for your question. That is appearing with a capital YES. We see that there are four angels that appears to surround you in what we see as like a box. You are essentially in the center, and these four angels take these four positions on the four corners with you. What appears outside of the angels in more of a circular form are the ascended masters. Let us talk about the four angels that we immediately see around you now. The first is connected to the name of Archangel Metatron. Metatron is appearing because you are here to work with the building blocks of matter as it's related to your thoughts, your voice, and your actions. It is Archangel Metatron who helps you to build the structure of your work that allows you to offer it into the world in a much bigger container. The second is connected to the name of Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael allows you to act, cross the threshold, and see opportunities. He is also connecting you to the higher realms, which helps you to receive the messages from your source, from guides, and from your, quote, record keepers that helps you to translate it into information you can absolutely work with. The third is connected to the name of Archangel Raphael. Archangel Raphael is appearing as a healing angel that helps you to transmutate suffering because you are here to not only heal and embrace this energy tied to worth, abundance, and security, you are also here to help others impregnate that awareness in their own mind. The other is tied to the name of Archangel Gabriel. Gabriel is here to help you to speak with power and confidence in the world, to clear any of the karmic challenges that are standing in the way. With the appearance of these four angels, we see that there are four other ascended masters that appears to be connected to you. The first ascended master is connected to the name of Saint Germain. Saint Germain helps you to architect and design your life in a way that allows you to not only feel purposeful, but also needed. It's also Saint Germain that connects you to Archangel Raphael and Michael in order to be able to do spirit work on earth. The second is connected to the name of Master Hilarion. Master Hilarion is tied to the energy of truth, knowledge, and devotion. We see that Master Hilarion is here to help you embrace the body of work in order to take it into action to serve the world in a higher manner. Number three, we would like to share that ascended master known as Lakshmi is also appearing between Gabriel and Raphael. One of the reasons why Lakshmi is here is she is here to not only help you prosper, she is here to help you extend those seeds of connection so that others you choose to work with can also prosper as well. And at the core of Lakshmi's work is really rooting your energy to the entire abundance of source so that you can be this temple, this beacon of light that passes on that blessing to others. And the final being that is appearing is the name of Lord Melchizedek. At the opening of your Akashic records, we are greeted by the image of the temple. Those that hold temple energies are really tied to an order, Order, and there is an aspect of you and your work tied to the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek priests are here to serve the greater good, not the common good, the greater good. And when you are working with Lord Melchizedek, this helps you to understand Spirit's mission for you, how you are here to orchestrate, construct, and divine so that you can really be a source of light for the world. We await your questions at this time.
Thank you so much. I want to be respectful of your time and Anne's time. So I'm ready for the records to be closed. Or if there is one last message that is important that I know, please feel free to share that with me. But I know we need to finish this interview.
Thank you. Before we let you go, we have one last message to you, which is this. The antidote to the dark is the ability to bring in joy and light. And through the ability to find joy, appreciation, and gratitude in all things is how you bring Spirit's energy from the celestial to the material. You are being asked to anchor it and share that energy with the world because we want to reinforce that what you see is transient around you. Things will change. You can always count on that. But what is consistent, what is something that passes through all the tests of time and all the different lifetimes is Source's love and connection to you. So we ask you to anchor that energy of joy and receiving that energy of light so that you can be a temple that survives, thrives, and shares your light with the world during these dark moments. And we appreciate our time with you, and we have no further information for you at this time. End quote.
Thank you.
Okay, Stephan. And they show again the little dimple on your face. So really, that dimple seems to show up when you smile the most. And that record keepers just want you to know that that's not an accident.
Beautiful.
So while we're here, do you mind if we just close our Akashic records at this time?
Yes.
Great. Okay. We give thanks to the Most High God, our masters, teachers, loved ones, angels, and guides. We give thanks to the lords of the Akashic records, and we close the Akashic records for Stephan Martin Spencer. We give thanks to the lords of the Akashic records, and we close the Akashic records for Stephan Martin Spencer. Can we give thanks to the Lords of the Akashic Records, and we close the Akashic Records for Stephan Martin Spencer. Okay, your records are closed, sir.
Oh, thank you. This was
You're
fabulous.
welcome. It was, and I was really, really happy. I saw that temple show up, and I was like, "Well, that's never shown up before." And I think it's an aspect of your work that's just stepped into another level of solid. They call it solidity and structure, that you can just rest in it and rely in it, and that's really the most important. That when you're able to rest in the temple, there's an aspect of your soul that just says, "We've made it."
Hmm.
And there's nothing else we have to worry. And it's really about acceptance. So thank you for asking those questions, because I have not really had many people ask me about the vaccine. So to get that insight makes me realize it's worth waiting for.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This was such a gift, and we've been working together for I think several years now.
Yeah.
And you were referred to me by Stephen Renton, who I think of as a very kind of pragmatic, science-based guy. And when he made the referral, I thought, okay, I should take this seriously. And yeah, I'm so glad I did, because it's been a wonderful gift to have you in my life, to have had these experiences with you, and these learning opportunities that you've presented to me. So thank you.
Thank you. It is such an honor. It is such an honor, Stephan, to be able to work with you and Orion and the Akashic Records, because uh, you guys ask the kind of questions that I would have to say 90% of my clients are afraid to ask. And I'm grateful that you're willing to ask those difficult questions, because it allows us to see more information in the Akashic Records than I normally have access to. And it makes me just rest in the awareness that, you know what, we're going to be fine.
Yep.
We're going to be fine.
We're going to be more than fine.
Ooh, we are here. This is our dream life. This
Yep.
is the dream life, Stephan, that all our past lives have been working towards reaching, and to be able to be here in this life, to have the opportunities, the choices, the resources. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yep. I feel the same way. Such a blessing.
Beautiful.
So thank you. And now for our listener or viewer who wants to work with you, get their Akashic Records readings, how do they get in touch? Where should we send them to?
Well, I would actually love for you to send them to this course that I'm teaching,
Okay.
because I'm backed up right now. I have a really long waiting list, and people can sign up, but it's going to take me a few months to get to them. So, what I was being asked by the record keepers was to share and to empower others to be able to learn how to read the Akashic Records, because, like I said, this is an ability and a gift that's open for all of us. So, I'm going to actually send you the link. The best way to just really go and see how to learn more about the Akashic Records is go to this link. It's called bit.ly/Akashic Records Guide.
Wonderful. And your website is bodyenergyconnection.com.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You are so welcome. I'm so grateful for this time with you, Stephan. Like I said, this is the very first time that I've actually allowed the record keepers to show up in a podcast. So I'm grateful for that, because they knew just exactly how we needed to appear today.
Yeah.
So, yay!
Yay. All right. Thank you. And thank you, listener, for being part of this journey with me, and get out there and share your light with the world.